Take it away, Steve. Is the mic good? Secondary mic, streaming live to YouTube as well. Hello there in YouTube land. So we have a fantastic program for you tonight. We've got, aside from me, I'm just the good looks and charming personality of the group, but we've got some serious killifish hobbyists here, and they brought some cool stuff too. This is one heck of a mini auction tonight. How many items do we have? Did you guys count? There must be at least 100. Yeah. Anyway, it's one heck of a mini auction, including lots of killies, some of which you will hear about tonight, not to mention plants. So we've got, I put it in alphabetical order. It wasn't in total order of just handsomeness here. It was really tricky, though, as a challenge because everybody else's last name starts with H, so I really had to use my alphabetical order skills. So we've got Charles Harrison here, who is busy looking for killifish. We just added some eggs. Were these Jack's? Jack took some eggs to dinner with him before the meeting. That's why he was 10 minutes late rolling in. Where did Jack go? And they hatched out immediately. Did you just add water to them? Got some eggs that'll be in the auction as well. Yeah. These guys right here, though, this is, you just added water when he walked in? Yeah. He is, yeah, we got fish.
We got fish.
Yeah, and you guys are gonna see the fish. Did you bring the microscopes? So a lot of people to pass fish around to. But and then we've got Jack Heller, who I just mentioned, who has a phenomenal fish room you can see on YouTube. He's got 72 10-gallon tanks, almost 100% killifish, all in one water change system. And he can hatch eggs in under 10 minutes. I mean, that's amazing. They're probably also like, 6 months old or so, the eggs, getting ready to go. And then you probably know Mike Helwig over there. But if you don't, that's the man. He's going to tell us a little bit about keeping and breeding killies. Jack's going to tell us about some of the different killies and where to get them. And Charles is going to share some of his expertise and very cool close-up pictures forthcoming here that maybe I'm the only one that's been able to see aside from him so far in the presentation. So first up is me. I checked that one off already, got the introductions. And we're going to have to get Mr. Jack Heller over here. And I can look stuff up for you because you said you wanted to get some websites to talk about where to get killies, aside from here tonight. Bid early, bid often. We take credit cards, right? People want to go high?
Do you take credit cards?
I'll take credit cards.
Well, let me get in my.
We have to put on a special killifish shirt.
Yeah, I've got to make a fashion statement here first. Jesus, I put on a few pounds. Well, I understand my Nigripinnis are hatching.
Yes, they are.
So that's great.
And this is the YouTube mic right there. Clip that on your.
Oh, my little my new shirt.
You got rid of your convenient pocket.
Right. Oh, damn. Forgot about that pocket. Okay, so what I'd like to talk about is the availability of killies because that's a common issue that people come up with. I can't find them. And I wanted to go over the places you can find them. And the most preferable thing, of course, is to find them yourself, see them, look at them, and actually buy them. Here on the table, I see several tonight. I brought 6 pairs, plus all of those are available to somebody, plus another bag of eggs. Oh, I brought a 7th one, too. They're very small, but I wanted you guys to see what Australebius nigripinnis looks like. Steve just had a nice image of it on the board. And it's really a gorgeous little annual killifish. You take this very quickly before I get into the regular stuff. You take this bag of peat, you put it in a little bowl, put it in their tank, let it sit there for about 2 weeks. They swim into the little bowl that it's in.
Do you just use tap water or do you put tank water in it?
We put the tank water in it, and we put the peat in there. Then you take it out after 2 weeks, put it in a Ziploc like this.
Put that in the tank.
You put that in the tank, and they swim into it.
I mean the egg afterwards.
Oh, yeah. No, you put them into tank water 3 months later. This is a 3-month egg. Some of these are 3 months, some of them are 6 months. There's one that everybody wants. I don't know if anybody's going to see it again anytime soon, called the saber killie. Really magnificent, from the Orinoco Basin in Argentina. 12 months of incubation before that egg is ready to hatch. These are only 3 months, and they're very easy, and there it is. In my opinion, that's one of the prettiest of the annual killifish. Australebus nigripinus. Let me do something here. These are very small, but you can see how pretty they are. Here's a male and 2 females, and this is on the auction table. So whoever gets it last, if you could send it back to the auction table, I'd appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to go very quickly because we've got 3 different speakers tonight. The most common killies that every beginner, every newbie wants to get, let me quickly read a list of them, then I'll show you how to get them. First is Funnelopanchex gardneri, and it is here on the table tonight. You can see what a gorgeous fish that is. And it's very easy. It's a mop-spawning killifish. Second one is Funnelopanchex shastidii, the blue galaris, which is the emblem of our organization, the American Killifish Association. Again, a really gorgeous fish. There it is. The third is Aphyosemion australe, the lyre-tailed killie, also very, very popular. Do I see it up there? No. The most popular one is a golden or orange morph of that fish. And there is, pardon? Yeah, I did bring some. Well, the lyre-tail you have listed as a gardneri, though. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I just heard lyre.
Yeah.
I got it up there, Jack.
Oh, you have it up there? Okay. Oh, great. There it is. There it is. Okay, super. Thanks. 2 of the Nothobranchus, which are annual killifish, pardon me, which are very popular, are Nothobranchus guntheri, which Steve can tell you don't stop producing. They keep going and going and going. Another one that's a little more challenging because it's a 6-month egg, but it's an equally gorgeous Nothobranchus, is Nothobranchus racovii. And I may be going a little bit too fast. There's racovii up in the corner there. And it's a really gorgeous little killifish. They only last a little more than a year, but they're very prolific and a really, really gorgeous fish. Both of those Nothobranchus are very pretty. Epiplates is another genus. The most popular ones are Epiplates degei and a little one called Epiplates annulatus. It used to be called Pseudo-Epiplates annulatus, or the clownfish, the clown killie. Now it's called just Epiplates annulatus. Another very popular one is Aplochilus lineatus gold. And that's a, pardon?
You got to spell that one for me.
A-P, okay, I'm going to try. A-P-L-O-C-H-E-I-L-U-S. Lineatus. And it's called in the industry the wonder killie. It's a morph. It's not a true wild killie. It was something that showed up in the tanks, and they've kept it going. And it's a really gorgeous animal. They get as big as blue galaris if they're given the space. Annual killies, there are 2 that are very popular, Australebus nigripinus, which I'm passing around now. You know what, I should have passed the flashlight. Oh, I did pass the flashlight with it. Oh, is that a phone? Okay, I'm sorry. I should have passed the flashlight around with it. And the other is Sympsonichthys santana. And when we start showing you online sources of killies, you'll see both of these fish. Okay, now to my main topic, which is where to get killies. The best of all places to get them is from other fish keepers you know, and from the Maasai auction table. And you know the people up here who have killies, all 4 of us have them, or have had them. And you can call all of us, and see who has what you're looking for. I would strongly suggest, though, that you start with easy ones that are fairly guaranteed. Nigripinus is a very easy one for annuals. Santana is another very easy one. The very easy mop spawning, our non-annual Achilles, are Fundulopanchix gardneri, Aphyosimian australe, and let's see if I can't find another one. The blue galeras I don't think is terribly difficult, although it is semi-annual. They lay their eggs either in gravel or in peat, and they have a fairly limited spawning period. The incubation is about 6 weeks. They're a gorgeous fish, really great to work, but a fair warning, you need a tremendous amount of space to raise them. You need, I'd say, at a minimum, a 20-gallon tank for 2 pairs. And if you want to go more than 2 pairs, plan on a 55 or more. So they need that space. Where to get them? The first place is right here at Maasai. And they're, the Maasai members who do keep killies. Maasai auctions, of course, because you get people from several areas and states around here. And there are always killies on the table. The local pet shops. I was in Tropical World Pet last week. I saw lampi killie. I saw the clown killie, Epiplates annulatus. And I saw one, the wonder killie. The wonder killie was there, Aplicatulus lineatus gold. Now we get to online. And that is your second tier of search. It's not your first tier. You want to see them in person. That's the best bet. And you always have a risk when you import killies or get them in the mail. Online, I haven't provided a list of email addresses because you can get that online by simply going to a search and asking for killies for purchase. If you do that right now. Killies for purchase. And one of the things that should come up is Aquabid. And Aquabid is a tremendous source if you're going to have to get them through the mail. Now, I don't recommend getting live killies from out of the country because it's a ton of paperwork. You have to have a limited import license, which you can fill out online and submit, but it's a crapshoot. Half the time they're not going to make it alive. And, but it's worth trying if they're from, say, England, France, or in some cases Germany, and they can send them to you very fast. But hang on to your wallets, folks, because these are going to be expensive, and the cost of shipping them is very expensive. Plus, you have to deal with fish and wildlife once they get here. And it's a complicated process, how could you not? I want to read something real quick. The second place I like is Wet Thumb in Oregon. And one of my friends at Wet Thumb, Luke, just sent me, or Lewis, I'm sorry, just sent me a list. Pardon? Wet Spot. Wet Spot. I said Wet Thumb, pardon me. He doesn't know his killies very well, so he just gave me generic names. Vivittatum killie, which gives you a clue how little he knows. Chocolate australe, clown killie, the Epiplates annulatus, Ager's eye, gold australe, golden gardener eyes. He calls it a gardener eye killie, which Gunther's killie, there's Nothobranchus guntheri, Nothobranchus cassici. There's blue-eyed killie, the pearl killie, which is Nigripinus, the Nothobranchus ricovii. He's got albino ricovii. He's got the red striped killie, which is another very easy one, Aphyosimian striatum. And it's really drop-dead gorgeous, very beautiful animal. And the Rubripinus. For the life of me, Charles, do you remember what genera that is? What genus Rubripinus is? Is that an annual? Rubripinus. I think it might be a Rivulus.
Are you talking about Fundulus?
Yeah, Fundulus
Fundulus rubripinus from Florida and Alabama. That's it. That's it. Okay, which, thanks guys, that reminds me, another great immediate source. What was that great stream that we went to, Steve?
Which one?
The one where we took Stefan.
Oh, so we took Stefan to LaBarque.
To what?
LaBarque Creek.
LaBarque Creek. We caught Cantinatus there, Fundulus cantinatus.
And Olivaceous.
And Olivaceous, a few Olivaceous, but mostly Cantinatus. They were huge and they were gorgeous. And that is another great source of local killies. Once a year, we used to go on a collecting trip. Now that I know that park, I don't think we should go down to Steelville anymore. I think this is much better, actually, Mike. And the darters are just spectacular. We had a great trip. Pat, you were there too, weren't you? That was a great day.
Did we go to Lions Den Road before too?
Pardon?
Did we go to Lions Den Road before the creek there?
Lions Den?
Not that time, but we have, yeah.
Yeah, that might be another one.
LaBarque is 30 minutes, kind of
Yeah,
west of here. It's
Well,
great
Lions Den
natural
Road,
area.
we ran off 21.
There's supposed to be 3 different killies there as well as a good number of darters. How many killies are there in Missouri? Native? There are 8 now.
8.
Different native
Wow.
killies in Missouri. And you can keep them if you have a valid fishing license.
yeah.
Whether or not
Or if you're an old fart like myself, you don't need a valid fishing license. Me and Charles don't have to pay. But anyway, let me go on because I don't want to take up too much time. The other guys have a lot going on. So anyway, those are my local areas. And now I'm talking about Wet Spot, AZ Gardens. Very good prices at AZ Gardens, if you can you see that? Let me get out of the way. Find Killies, and you'll see some very nice images.
Have you bought stuff from them?
AZ?
AG Gardens.
A long time ago. It's been at least 4 years.
Usually dies.
Oh, really? Thank you. Okay.
Have you tried Dan's Fish?
Yes, I have.
Stuff from Indonesia.
Very successful.
Have you tried Vivi, V-I-V-V-Y? It's like aquavit now.
No, no.
It's a good one too.
Okay. How about Live Aquaria? Okay. You said no? No. Okay. Incidentally, I wanted to tell you on Aquabid, I'm really not supposed to say this in front of a crowd. If you're ordering eggs, there's a guy you need to avoid like the plague. His name is, I can't remember his actual name, but he goes by Street Clyde or Streeth Clyde. He's from Scotland, although he's a Russian. But he has been very problematic, and I think they're going to bounce him from Aquabid. So that's my pitch against Aquabid. Otherwise, Aquabid is very reliable. The eggs, generally, I don't recommend getting non-annual fish eggs because they're usually 2 to 4 weeks before they hatch, and that's too short of a period to get them through the mail from Europe. And I've had a lot of problems with non-annual fish, whereas I've had tremendous success with annual killifish going through Aquabid. You want to try Worldwide Fish? They have some very good images.
Is that the last one?
I think Dan is the last one, Dan's
showed
Killy.
Dan's already.
Oh, did you show Dan's?
Somebody brought it up.
Okay, yeah. I think Gary mentioned him. Oh, no, Gary was talking about that other bad actor. Okay, let me get on the second page here. Here's another one that I like. There you go. There you go. That's a gorgeous killie, by the way. Courthouse eye. It's only a 6-week egg, and it comes in 2 different forms, sometimes in the same hatch, a deep blue one and that red one. They're both very easy, they're healthy, and they're really attractive fish. Oh, there's my golden wonder killifish. Now you see it. This thing can get huge if you do it in a pond or a big outside container, or if you let it have a very large container by itself. Unfortunately, they cut the head off of this one, so you can't really see it. But that's a gorgeous blue-eyed killifish. Pardon? There you go. You got the head. You got the head. All right. Try one more. We've done dance. Have you done aqua art yet? Aquatic art, I'm sorry, aquaticarts.com. There it is. If you can find killies, they've got some great images. Well, they got a little bit of everything here. There's a medaka, a rice fish, which is very similar to a killie. If you could scroll down just a little bit. Now, I don't really see any other killies here. I'm surprised. Did you have it in the first one? Yeah. Because he's got some nice killies. One more.
Oh, you tell them about the magnifying glass. I was still looking for
Oh,
the
yeah.
killifish.
Killifish. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, that's a great picture of the lampi. It's the neon stripe lamp, Macrothalmus. Except that's not Macrothalmus. Some of it's not quite accurate. There's the clown killie that I like so much. There's the golden wonder. There's Norman's lampi. That's the correct one. That is, I'm sorry. That's not, I don't understand it. That's not Aplicalus macrothalmus. There is an American killie, the American flagfish, Jordanella florida, which I really like. And that one lives on plants as much as it does on meaty foods. So they'll eat a lot of plant-based foods too. There's a couple of very nice rice fish, medakas. That one's from Japan, and it's a yellow one, and it's really striking. And if you see that this says they're all sold out, it's because it's winter time. They don't ship in the winter. But come spring, all of these will be listed and they'll all be, available. And this place, again, has a pretty short turnaround. They're pretty dependable. So anyway, those are the sources I have. If you want to see what they look like, get good views of them, go to, pardon me a minute, Charles. Let me talk to him for a minute. Go to aka.org. And I'm going to show you one more source where you can look at these fish and see which ones really strike your fancy. Go down on the right. Oh, sorry. Down on the right, and you'll see killies of West Africa.
They also posted
You
the
see it?
entire beginner's guide to killies on the AKA site.
Yeah, that's right. Also, I'd like to recommend a book by our friend Stefan Hellner, which is one of the best killie books I've ever found on general maintenance. If you go to this one, hit General Index on the left. Go to, try Ephiosimian, center, top. There you are. Choose any one of them. Well, try a Chromaphiosimian. Try Bitaniatum, down on the left. Yeah. There you go. There's some really neat images on this site. Some of them not so good. Most of them are very good. And it'll give you a good feel for what West African killies look like.
I brought a pair of Bibitatum for the auction tonight.
Okay, I've got,
Mine look better than these.
I've got 2 pairs as well, but they're very young. Let's try one more site. I'm not sure it's going to work. It's called itrainsfishes.net. It's produced by a guy out of Aruba. It's not going to work. Normally on the left-hand side here, he has a listing of all of the species from South America. He's the foremost authority right now on South Americans. His name is Franz Vermeulen. And he's got a great book out too, The Killies of the Lost World. And usually on the left-hand side of this page, he has a whole listing, and you can bring up any killifish that they're aware of in South America, whether it's rivulus, which is a non-annual, or the others, which are annuals. And it'll give you a tremendous background and some good breeding guidelines. So anyway, that's my presentation. Thank you, sir. And I want to turn it over to Michael, who will tell you how to raise these guys. Oh, yeah, you may have that. Although you got a nice loud voice. So. Let me get it off. It's not coming. Whoops, whoops. Mike, you're yours. Thanks.
This isn't on.
Oh, one more thing. Anybody who's got a flashlight who wants to come out, look in this little container here, and you'll see newly hatched baby Australorhynchus nigricans. And those are going to be available. That is going straight to YouTube. I've got a can or a jar with a lid.
Gonna turn the lights on.
But if you're going to bid on them, be sure you have either microworms or baby worms.
I had to turn on the lights because I'm not going to show you slides. I wanted to do something different. Yeah. Back in the old days, yeah. Now, back in the old days, most of the talks that we used to do were hands-on talks. So that's what I'm doing tonight, one of those olden days talks. So got my bag of goodies here. As most of you know, I like to breed fish and bred a lot of killies over the years. All I'm going to do is kind of introduce you to the ways to breed them and kind of keep them. Has anybody kept a 10-gallon tank before? A few of you. Okay. Kept some plants in it? Little filter? Okay, that's all you need. And actually, for a lot of the killies, you don't even need a filter, although you got to do a lot of water changes. So that's a nice, easy way of doing it. Set up a nice planted tank. And the only caveat that I will give you is I know it's very popular nowadays to do open top planted tanks. Don't do that with killies. Otherwise, your dog or cat's going to be nibbling on them on the floor because killies like to go exploring. That's one of their natural behaviors. In the wild, you find them in very, very shallow water. And they move from little pools of shallow water to other little pools of shallow water by jumping across the land. And some of you who have been in the hobby for a long time may remember a guy named Al Castro. He was from San Francisco, and he was a killie guy. He also worked at the aquarium there, and he started out with killies. The very first killies he got was a pair of Aphyosemion at that time, Gardneri, and he got home. They were so beautiful. He was so excited. He put them in a container. His fish room was a closet in his basement. That was all that he had room for. So killies were perfect for that because he could put a lot of little tanks in the closet.
You started like that too.
I did, pretty much. So anyway, he walks outside the basement door to get his wife, who was out in the garden, to get her to come in and look at these beautiful fish that he just bought. And she says, "You mean the thing that just followed you out the door?" And he did not realize they needed to have a cover on the tank. So I always like to tell that little story just to let everybody know, make sure you keep a good cover on your tank. And one of the things that makes it easy to do that are these great little critter tanks. Because you got a little top like this that just snaps on there, and the killies aren't going to get out until they figure out how to open the little latch on the top. But they work really, really well, but only for breeding killies. For long-term keeping, you want a little bit bigger tank. Another thing that a lot of people do is they think that, well, killies, they only live for 5 or 6 months, or they're really dangerous because the name kill is in their name. And I've actually heard people tell me that. It's actually from the Dutch word kill, which means small stream, or creek, as we would call it here. in the Midwest. But basically, killifish are fish from small streams, and they started calling them that up in the New England area, and that name kind of stuck. It sounds better than panchaks anyway. But you can keep them in a community tank, and you can keep a bunch of them in a community tank. I once had a 55-gallon tank that was full of these big, beautiful fish called Nathalibius zonatus. And they were, 5, 6 inches long. And it was a 55-gallon tank. It was all males, unfortunately. I wound up with all males. And everybody that came into the fish room was like, what are those fish? They look fantastic. It's like, oh, those are killifish. No, those couldn't be. But they do. They look spectacular. I don't know if you can look those up, Scott, RC, or... But anyway, I'm just rambling along here. So anyway, if you want to breed them, and you buy fish from just about anybody that Jack was showing that sells killifish, they sell killifish in pairs, which drives me absolutely bananas. I go to these auctions for the AKA at the conventions, and they've got all these beautiful killifish, and everybody's fighting over the pairs, and they're buying just one pair, which is just absolutely crazy. I always like to start out with at least 6 fish or whatever. Nathalibius, G-N-A-T-H-O.
You gotta slow down.
G.
I'm just the good looks and charming person.
All right, G-N-A-T-H-O-L-E. There you go, zonatus, right at the top there. And there's not a picture. Oh, there we go. Now imagine that about 5, 6 inches long, just out in the middle of the tank, just swimming and being amazing in the tank. And if you like smaller fish, that's perfect for killies, because most of the killies you'll keep are a lot smaller than that. So anyway, when I go to breed them, I've got 2 different ways that I breed killies. And basically, we divide them up into 2 different ways. Either a mop spawner. When we're talking about mops, we're using these nylon or acrylic mops that you make out of yarn. And I just got a skein last night and made a bunch of these for the auction tonight. I got a dozen of them out of one skein of yarn with a little bit left over. And then some cheap old fishing corks to float. And you basically just wrap it around, tie them up. There are lots of good videos online about that. But you can use wine bottle corks. You can use the fishing bobbers. You can actually just tie them up to the top of the tank, whatever you want to do. But a lot of people divide the killies into either the mop spawning or the other ones that Jack was talking about that were the dirt spawning, or the bottom spawning. So my lazy way of doing it is to set up a 10-gallon tank, all nicely planted and everything like that, put 2 or 3 pairs in there, feed them real heavily live foods for a week or so, and Charles will talk about the different live foods, and then move the adults out of that tank. And usually within a couple of weeks, you'll start seeing fry in there, and you'll be surprised how many fry you get. And with killies, you don't want a whole lot of fry to raise because you're not going to be able to, even though they're beautiful fish, most people, like I said, think kill when you talk about them, so you're not going to be able to sell too many of them. But they're very, very easy to raise. And now I'm going to show you kind of another way of spawning them, which most of the killie guys, the old guys, tell me is the right way to do it, which is to use something like this, a little tank, and set up a pair by themselves. So let's talk about how we do that. All right. So first of all, you get your little tank set up, and it's real simple. All you need is a little mop and the little snap on top. You put your water in there, you put your pair of killies in there, and then you put your mop in there, and it's going to be floating like that. Now you notice this mop is kind of long in here, and it goes all the way down to the bottom. Can everybody in the back see that? See how it kind of lays on the bottom? Because a lot of the mop spawning killies, even in the same species, some of them will like to spawn up at the top, some of them will like to spawn in the middle, and some of them will spawn on the bottom. So you want to kind of give them a choice of where they're going to lay their eggs. Now, you might think, well, it'd be a good idea to just take this yarn and kind of drape it over the side and then snap the top over that. What happens is the yarn acts like a little wick, and starts wicking the water out of the tank, and it'll actually drain the tank completely. So don't do that. But basically, this is exactly what you need to spawn the killies. Nothing else. Little tank, well, water. Okay, but little tank with the water, with the parafish, and with a couple of mops in there, and that's it. That's all you need. And what'll happen is the male and female will get together. They will lay their eggs. You can pick the eggs. That's another thing that a lot of advanced hobbyists get very good at. And then you get these little deli containers, and you fill these up with water. And there's actually on the AKA website in the beginner's guide, there's a way of making a solution that's kind of helps prevent fungus. You can also get, do you still sell it, Charles, the acroflavin? Okay, you can use, get some acroflavin from Charles and you just put a little drop in here. And basically, you just kind of set them up on the shelf and wait and watch. And you can come up here and look at the baby killies up here. After about 2 to 3 weeks, they'll start hatching. Once they start hatching, then you want to take them and put them into a container. It's a little bit bigger. Another little deli container. Gives them lots of surface area, but it's not too big an area so that the baby killies don't have to go around searching for food. It'll all be kind of concentrated there. The only thing with these small containers is you have to remember to change the water in them fairly frequently. And with these little ones with the fry in there, just take a little baster or something like that, or a little piece of airline tubing, and drain the water every day. Yes?
Do you need an air to them or anything?
You do not. You absolutely do not. But I'm going to talk about what you can do in just a minute. Because after about a week or 10 days, you get to the point where the fry are getting kind of big, and they need a little bit more room than this. So then you can use one of these containers. Now, when you use one of these containers with the fry in it, you're going to go ahead. They've got an opening in the top that you can put an airline in. So there's a little hole up there so that the killies still won't jump out. And I discovered these little filters actually when I was a little kid. These little box filters, I don't know if anybody remembers them. They used to come with the 10-gallon aquarium kits back in the 60s and 70s, made by a company called Sternco. But what is cool about them is, Justin, are you here tonight? No, he is not. Okay. Well, Justin Warnock, he noticed that I was using these little filters, and I'm always looking for parts. And you might have seen my ad in the Darter looking for these for parts and stuff like that. Well, he's got a 3D printer. So he printed up a bunch of these and made all the parts for me. And now he's selling these little filters, and he's actually calling them the Hellwig filter, although I did not design it or anything like that. The only design modification I made was the little feet on here. And you notice that I've got a little piece of tile glued onto it, or siliconed onto it. And that's what the little feet are for, is to help hold it on. And the reason for that is because you're putting this into a bare tank, so there's no gravel to hold the filter down. And the cool thing about these little filters is that, like a box filter, you can put anything you want in it, any different kind of media or something like that. And I keep a bunch of little sponges like this that I keep in little filter, power filter things so that they're always bioactive and ready to go. So all you have to do is just pop them in there. And you can put 2 or 3 of them in there. And if you wanted to put some carbon in there, or some peat, or crushed coral, or whatever, you got a little mini filter. And then you can take this and put this in this container, and you got plenty of room in there. And you can actually raise the fry in here until they get to be about 3/4 of an inch long or so. You'd still have to do water changes. That's the other reason I like these. Here's how you do a water change. Go over to the sink and you just kind of, because they won't go through the top. So you can pour out half the water and then fill it back up, and boom, you're done. So these things work really, really well for raising the fry and for breeding the fish. You can also use them for the mop spawning killies. Now, you probably haven't seen a bowl this small in a long time, but Ralph Wilhelm took and found this little top that just kind of snaps in there. And the hole is about the right size. It's the perfect size. So you go to the store and you get these things right here. Thank you, Charles. These little things called Jiffy 7 peat pellets. And basically, it's just peat moss, and it's compressed into these little pellets. And they call them Jiffy 7 because it expands to 7 times the size of the Jiffy pellet. Now, these are a whole lot smaller than they used to be. 7 times this used to be a lot more peat. Nowadays, this is the one that I hydrated last night, so you'll need to use 2 or 3 of them. And depending on the Killies, you got your little container, your glass container, because it sinks to the bottom, and you want to go 1 inch to 2 inches deep. With some of them, they actually like to dive way down in there, and you want to put even more peat in there, so it's like 5 or 6 inches deep. The reason for having this hole is to keep the peat from coming out when the fish come out after they get done spawning. And then the setup for this is even simpler than the other one. There you go. That's well, with the peat in the little tank, obviously. But that's all you need to do. You can get a lot more elaborate than that. You can set up a 10-gallon tank. You can use a different size bowl. You can use you can get all different kinds of glassware containers that have rubber tops that you can cut little holes in. Just make sure that it's smooth so the fish don't cut themselves up on it. Little plastic butter dishes. I always add a couple of marbles to those so that they don't float up in the tank. If you can't find marbles, you can use rocks or a little bit of gravel. But basically, all you want to do is just give them a place to go spawn. And then the other thing is you don't want to have anything on the bottom of the rest of the tank so that you can keep that part of the tank clean, especially with Nathobranchius, which were the beautiful red and blue ones that Jack was showing a few minutes ago. Those guys, for some reason, happen to be a little bit more sensitive especially to velvet. And if the water quality is not there, then you might have a little problem with velvet. And what you can treat that with, or what you can prevent that with, is adding like a teaspoon of salt per gallon of water. And it's not because these are brackish fish or anything like that. Actually, they come from the middle of Africa, from the middle of the plains where you always see the elephants and the gazelles and the lions and everything like that. That's where they come from. And when the rainy seasons come, the whirlpools fill up with water, the babies hatch, and within sometimes as little as 3 or 4 weeks, they're already breeding. But they have to do it quick because within 10 or 12 weeks, they're gone. The puddle's gone again.
Aren't there some of the peat spawning killifish that are from South America too?
Yes, there are.
Are
There,
they rainless too or no?
no, they're in some of the other, like that one, the black and white spotted one that we were showing a little while ago. They're in general like that, Australabius and a couple of other genera like that. Yeah, like there you go. But basically, these guys, the difference is the Nathobranchius like it to be a little bit warmer. And all of my killifish, I keep them all at room temperature, except for some of the northern South American ones, like that Natholibius we were showing earlier. I like to keep, or they actually require being kept a lot warmer. But most of them, if you keep them at room temperature, as long as you're comfortable, they're going to be fine. So there's another group of killifish that a lot of us have a lot of access to. We just briefly covered collecting them. There are 8 species of killies that are found here in Missouri. All of them do very well in aquariums. The only one, Fundulus catnatus, which is the biggest one, you have to get them when they're small. Otherwise, they don't really adapt to eating aquarium food, and they kind of just starve. But all the rest of them, as soon as something hits the water, killifish are surface feeders, and they always go for whatever hits the surface. They'll go dart up, grab it, and then kind of swim away real quick.
Olivaceous up there on that.
Yep, Fundulus olivaceous, one of my favorites, Missouri native killie. There's another one, Fundulus notatus, that looks a lot like that, except it doesn't have the black spots on the back, and the band is a little bit more broken up. Then there's, let's see, Fundulus dispar, which is found down in the south. There's Fundulus diaphanous, which is found right here. And there's Fundulus sciaticus, which is kind of a gray and red killie, which is actually fairly attractive. And those guys are found down in central and southern Missouri. And then there's Fundulus kansai, which is found in central Missouri over into Kansas and then down into Oklahoma. And that one's a beautiful striped killifish. And Jack and I actually went, wherever Jack disappeared to, there he is. We actually went to a spot where they had collected them in the past, and we saw the Fundulus kansai swimming there, and we went after them, and they disappeared. And then a little while later, they were back. And then they disappeared again. And we finally figured out what was going on. They dive down into the bottom, into the substrate, and they hide. They bury themselves in the water. And they'll also do that in your aquarium. They'll dive down into the sand. So there are a couple of different ways. I just kind of briefly touching on this, and I'm always available if anybody wants to ask any questions or anything. But another type of mop we do is a mop that has no float on it. And I like to use, I had them, yeah, there they are. When you buy bunch plants, you get these little lead weights. You tie one or two of those to those, and then they can weigh them down on the bottom, because a lot of the Achilles will go just to the bottom and lay their eggs. Some of them will lay their eggs, actually like the Fundulus olivaceus, will lay their eggs in the substrate, and you don't even need to have any plants or anything in there. They'll, if you got like pea gravel on the bottom, they'll lay their eggs there, and you can have them set up for a week or 10 days, and then pull the adults out, and the fry will start hatching. And then a few of the Achilles have this real annoying habit. They like to stick their eggs real tightly into places. And one of the things, the ways that you can take a mop, take a bunch of rubber bands, and you make a bunch of tight little spots, and you just kind of either float it or lay it down on the bottom in the tank, and they'll actually get in there and they'll wiggle their eggs real deep inside there. And every day when you go to check to see if there's any eggs in there, you got to dig your way through and see if you can find them. Now, another way that you can mop spawn is to separate the males and females, just like you do with a lot of the other fish. And if you separate the males and the females for a week or 10 days, you put them back together, put a couple of mops in there, just let them go to town, and then pull the mops out and put them in a separate tank, just put them directly into one of these little tanks to raise. And you're gonna have a lot of fry in there, so you wanna make sure that if you do use that, go ahead and make sure you've got aeration or filtration in there. And the one other thing that I will mention about with these little filters, you notice I took the top off so you can see the sponge in here, but when you've got little fry in the tank, so that they don't get sucked into the filter, just leave the top off. It works just as well without the top as with the top. So they work very, very well. And like I said, Justin does sell those, and I really love them. I use them in all my small tanks. So does anybody have any questions? I know that was really quick and I gave you a lot of information. So does anybody have any general questions about breeding? Okay, nobody's awake anymore. Good. All right, when we have the auction here tonight, in the past, SLAKA has always given away a little care kit or a little breeding kit that came with every one. So I've got some Jiffy 7 pellets. I've got some mops up here. I've only got about 8 or 10 of them. And then I've got some little instruction sheets. Oh, I guess they're still over there. I got some little instruction sheets about how to raise either mop spawners or substrate spawners. So feel free to take one of those when but you have to buy the fish first. So, so anyway, if anybody has any questions or anything like that, you know where to find me. And now Charles will talk about how to feed the fry and feed the adults.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Charles? Charles, you put that on your pocket.
Yeah.
Gotta use the other mic to present to this group.
What is this do?
Goes to YouTube. Just stick it right there. Live around the world. That was around the world? Around the world.
Testing. Can everybody hear? Can everybody understand? If I put it this close, is it really booming here? So I'll try it like this. Can we turn the lights down some? Lights? Lights? Not yet. Not yet. Visit to my fish room, and these are, oops, which one is the bright? Is the light?
Let's see. We press that down. Oh, how do we do it? Oh, top button's the laser pointer.
Okay.
Maybe the laser pointer doesn't work.
Maybe the
I
light.
don't know. I'm not allowed to use laser pointer.
Okay.
It's too dangerous.
All right. These are two 1 gallon,
Moves the cursor in the middle.
two 1 gallon glass bottles. And the necks close down to 1-inch openings on the bottom, and I just cut the bottoms out of them. So they're about half-gallon bottles. I filled that up with water up to the line, and drew the line on the things. Both of them get the same amount of water in them. And then I weigh out the amount of salt that goes in them, and I found that using water softener salt is probably the best way to go with it. And I try to be real simple with it, and then put in the amount of eggs in each one of the hatchers, and I can use the water more than once in that way, once or twice, before I have to change it and add more salt, more water to them. What else is up here? Wish this thing worked.
Microworm culture?
Now I'm trying to find the hydrometer. I had to measure the specific gravity of the. .02 is the specific gravity that they recommend, that brine shrimp recommends for raising them. And you'll notice that the colors of the solutions inside the bottles are more red. That's because they've hatched out. They're more brown the day before when you put them in there. And they take approximately 24 hours to run through it. There's 2 microworm cultures, so I try to keep a bunch of stuff going all the time. But one thing about this type of setup, I've got a fluorescent lamp underneath the 2 hatchers. Air is bubbling in the hatchers continuously until I decide to let them settle and drain out the brine shrimp from the bottom. And it's not there. So, well, there's a hydrometer on there for measuring the density of the water. Okay, let's start the program. And where are you going to start?
Try and start right here. Changed on me. There we go.
Well, now that's not the order that I put it in.
I didn't change it.
Fruit flies. We're going to try to find some smaller worms, some smaller animals going down. Down. Brine shrimp. I get my brine shrimp eggs from Brine Shrimp Direct. They're at the Great Salt Lake, and it's probably one of the most popular places to get brine shrimp eggs. This can of 90% premium grade is about $48. I usually buy 4 at a time, so I have them on hand, and it's a little bit cheaper if I buy them in 4 at a time. 6 is even cheaper. There are a few places around in town that sell brine shrimp eggs in the cans, and it's important that whenever you're using brine shrimp, which is the basis of all things, those little fish in that dish over there need brine shrimp or they need microworms. So this is my place to start with the brine shrimp eggs. Down. Approximately 18 hours to 24 hours to hatch. Once the brine shrimp are out of the shell, they start to consume themselves. And if you notice in the brine shrimp on the right, that's a newly hatched brine shrimp. The brine shrimp on the left has been there for approximately 4 more hours. So it's been given that 4 more hours to consume the nutrition that the brine shrimp have. One more. And here's a group of them. Notice the ones that are most dark, most completely filled up, are only hatched moments before. The brine shrimp that have the alimentary canal, that have a digestive system, have probably got about 4 to 6 hours after they've hatched. So they begin to dissolve, begin to eat themselves to digest the nutrients in there. If you want the brine shrimp to be best for your fish, then you need to have them right after they've hatched. not after they've started digesting themselves. Next. Oh, no, man, I would like to go back to that one. But sometimes going out and getting things other than brine shrimp. Daphnia is one of those popular things. Some of the streams and the ponds around here, it's easy to collect some animals from those, microscopic animals from those, and you bring them into your fish room and try to feed them to your fish, and you wind up with, do it, back to where you were. Yeah. These little buggers are egg eaters. They're also fish eaters. They're brine shrimp consumers. The more brine shrimp you add to this tank, the more dense it's going to get in population of hydra. And there are several other egg eaters around too. But you watch yourself. These can control the output of your fish tanks, killing fry, and it certainly does eat a lot of brine shrimp. Let's see where we're going next. Okay, size is relative. The Daphnia that I mentioned, it's a pretty good size animal, and not every fish can eat it. The ones in that dish are not big enough, or their mouths are not big enough to eat the Daphnia. The paramecium, wait, back up. Paramecium, if I had a pointer, it would work. The spots over here on the left are paramecium that I've included in there for a relative size of what the difference between the two are.
I have a laser pointer.
You have a laser pointer? That might help. The Daphnia itself, you'll notice along the back ridge of the Daphnia, the eye is on the right and the back ridge is on the left. It produces eggs along the back spine of the animal, and those are will be the newly hatched Daphnia that are distributed into the water system as the reproduction continues on, making more animals.
Well, I used to have a laser pointer.
Used to have a laser pointer. Okay, we'll move on. Paramecium can be found in almost all the streams and ponds and so forth around. But it's probably the best thing to do to avoid getting hydra or anything like that into your culture, into your system, is to get them from Carolina Biological Supply. They are online, and they're very, very good at what they have to offer us. This is a microscopic picture of the paramecium. There's 3 little paramecium in here. Give you some relative size and a microworm culture. I've stopped the motion on the worms so they're no longer wiggling, and the paramecium no longer swimming around. And you see the one in the very center is the very first molt out of a female. They're nematodes. Nematodes means they've got 4 life stages between the adult and the egg. So you've got all kinds of sizes of worms, all kinds of sizes of food for newly hatched fish, like the fish in that. If you look at your collection of what you might find in a pond or a stream, something local, the paramecium are the 2 larger animals, and the one in the center is a rotifer. The one there on the far left with the stripe coming out of the backside is the euglena for making green water. So you find all kinds of things together, but to give you some kind of an idea, the microworms are even smaller than the paramecium that are in there, smaller than the rotifer that are in there. And they're the first flora that emerge from the females. And most of the, I can say that, most of the nematodes are lab bearer producing, and whatever is available, go ahead, let's go look through some more. It's a clump of that mess. Go on. Okay, live bearing, 4 molting stages, and the adult. So as they crawl up out of the soup, and they're crawling up out of the soup because of the alcohol, because of the acetic acid that the fermentation makes, and they cover the walls of the vessels that they're in. You can wipe those things out and put them into the tank like that one over there, and they'll spread out throughout the whole thing. To see just exactly their Their sizes, though, you've got to look pretty close. And the fish can discern between them. And it's a different kind of wiggling stage. It's not a paramecium. It's not something that smoothly glides through the water. But these things are undulating. They're continually moving all the time if they're alive. Next. Been talking about Walter worms, banana worms, and just ordinary microworms. And I've gone through some microscopic searching, trying to compare what is the difference between a Walter worm and what's the difference between a common microworm. And I can't find any difference. So it depends on what you happen to be feeding them, what happen to they be eating on. But principally, these things eat on the yeast, and the yeast that's cultured inside of whatever mixture in here, whatever medium you have to use for feeding the worms. And that probably makes a big difference in how big they get to. Notice all through the different sizes of the worms that are present. So you can feed all sorts of fishes with this, with your microworm culture. Next. Again, many sizes in one pot. Next. Oh, sizes. This is not exactly where I plan to go. As a matter of fact, I'd like to put this into the last.
It is last.
It was last?
This is the last slide.
Okay. Red wigglers is one of my favorite foods. Blackworms is my favorite food. However, getting blackworms all the time is not an easy thing to do. But many of the sporting good stores in the area carry red wigglers. And this particular came from Dennis Sporting Goods. It's in Fenton. Walmart sells the worms in containers like this in their sporting goods section, and so does Dick's Sporting Goods. They also sell it in this type of box. And I paid $3 1/4 for this. It's a whole lot cheaper than blackworms. But there aren't very many of my Achilles that have big enough mouths that could eat a whole one of those things. So with a little bit of manipulation, I can usually get them down to sizes that almost all the Achilles will eat. Almost all the Achilles will eat. Sometimes I can leave them a little larger for the larger fish, but the red wigglers are a good substitute for blackworms, and they offer a black food.
I can't believe Sue let you use her kitchen scissors like that.
No, this one, no, these are mine. And then let's see what else is in there. No, you got the.
Flies at the beginning.
So there's some white worms in the one I sent you back.
Yeah, this one, that's the Grindle and Whiteworm picture that you sent.
Well, grindle worms and white worms are Annelida. These worms that you get here, they are Annelida. They belong to the family Annelida. They have, they're worm-like creatures, and they have rings throughout their body. And they also breed by pressing together the collar that appears at the, well, we go with that picture there that you just had up there. No, not that one, the one with the scissors. Yeah, whoops. And the top picture on the top left up there, just a small distance from the end, you can see there's a collar on the worm. And if you look closely at the worm and could see it up close, you'd find that it is also segmented. And so there are rings all the way through the body. This makes them this brings them into the family. And the white worms and the grindle worms also belong to the same family. And they reproduce in the same kind of way. By pressing the collars of individual worms together, they exchange gametes, and they produce a group of worms into the collar, and over a period of a week or so, they shed that collar into the soil or into whatever medium they happen to be living in. Now, the very last picture that you had up there with the worm sticking out of the egg.
Any burning questions?
Nope,
That's the last
nope,
picture.
nope. Go back to the one first then. See, last night we did this, I sent it back to him, and he said, you've got to write, all right, but I rearranged some things, and we're missing a few slides. But each one of those are the worm casings that the grindle worms have produced. And inside of the casings, you can see, I named my pointer. There's some over here on the right. There are approximately 2 worms in there. Sometimes there's as many as 3, actually inside the casing. And there's one emerging from the top of the casing. And I know a lot of researchers that have looked through these things and never have been able to see actually emerging out of a casing. So it's something unusual. And if I did, okay, burning questions. All right, let's have questions. Anybody have something I can answer?
Well, I wonder if we should, because it's a little bit after 9, save questions for individual speakers
Fine with me.
afterward and get started selling these 100 mini auction items.
Right.
Thank you very much, Charles.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you, Mike.
Can you tell it's off or on?
Pull that button down.
Yeah.
I'll take this off too. Kill the turn off. This goes right for folks that know what to do. Did you turn that off?
Figured we'd take a moment here and show what the killifish look like in here.
Hold your camera down there. Let's see what happens when I tap the side. See those? Did you see those fish go down? Sure. There's 6 of them.
Oh yeah, you can see it right there. Oh, camera's out of focus a little bit. See it moving around.
There's 6 fish in that group.
All right there.
That's easier to see.
I'm not sure I would know what my Facebook login is. This is my fingerprint.
That's pretty cool.
Data connection's not private.
Yeah, my Medaka rice fish are like similar size.
Yeah?
You know what I feed them? I feed them spirulina powder.
Okay. You just need to change the water more often so they can't eat all this spirulina.
It's just, a little bit of
I'll also
powder.
take a quick look over here. We had a request to take a look at the BAP and HAP options here. Right here. I think that's about it for the meeting here. Thank you, everybody that joined us. We're going to go ahead and sign off so that we can actually go in and auction off all these fish. Talk to you guys later.